Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Board of Supervisor meeting to order. The date is October 5th. The time is 9:01 a.m. I would ask everyone to please stand. I'm going to ask our librarian, Sarah Denton, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then please remain standing where Pastor Jeffrey Woods from the First Christian Church will give us an invocation.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we began this meeting committing ourselves afresh to ideals that we hold dear, expressing our desire to be one nation made up of a rich diversity of people, recognizing our need of your help to be truly united in an age of tremendous tension and polarization, so that we might strive together to promote true freedom and justice for every person among us. This morning, we thank you for the rich tapestry of people and cultures and ethnicities you've given us here in Stanislaus County, even as we specifically acknowledge and celebrate our brothers and sisters of Italian heritage who have enriched our lives through their leadership, innovation, and other contributions, not only in the areas of food production and distribution, from vegetables to fruits, nuts, wine, and oil, that nourish our bodies and soothe our palates, to the arts, religion, government, and community life that nourish our souls and can strengthen our sense of well-being. This morning we thank you for those in law enforcement who face increasing challenges from so many different forces at work in our land. And we ask that as they look to you, you would guide them, give them wisdom, discernment, and genuine understanding of every member of our community whom they're charged to serve and protect. Would you protect them as well, even as they protect us? This morning, we also thank you for all those connected with our health services agencies and emergency and essential services in Stanislaus County. While so many of us have been significantly impacted by the challenges of COVID-19, they have been on the front lines of this battle, often without respite. They have risked their lives, sacrificed so much for so long, often with little thanks, caught between opposing factions. But they have done it in such an admirable way. Would you bless, encourage, and strengthen them even as they continue to persevere in this long battle? We pray as well for those who are struggling with lack of housing and the threat of losing their housing. Would you provide for them and give wisdom to those who make decisions regarding housing? Father, even in the mundane, regular details of leading a county government, we realize the challenges can arise without warning. And so we ask that you would guide as well as grant courage and strength to our county supervisors and all those who serve with them and us as they deliberate and make decisions that will ultimately impact all of us. May what is done here this morning truly result in the greater good of every member of our Stanislaus County community. For I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Woods. Okay, going to move on to item 3. It's a presentation to proclaim October 2021 as Italian American Heritage Month in Stanislaus County. And Donna? And then I'll be coming down there to present the proclamation. And then one other thing before you get started, Donna, I do have, again, jury duty, and at 9:45 I will be getting up. If it's in the middle, I apologize, of someone's presentation, and then our vice chair will be taking over.
May I remove my mask to speak?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Chiesa, board members, CEO Hayes, and County Council Bose. I am Donna Ferreira, the immediate past president of the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy Modesto Lodge. I am joined today by our lodge president, Mary Michelli, and members of our lodge to humbly represent the Italian American community of Stanislaus County and thank the Board of Supervisors for proclaiming October as Italian American Heritage Month in Stanislaus County. Italian Americans have played a dominant role in the creation of Stanislaus County's agriculture, food processing, food distribution, wine industry, education, local government, and charitable organizations such as the Orders Sons and Daughters of Italy Modesto Lodge and the Central Valley Sons of Italy Foundation. Our strong belief in God, family, and service drives us to care not only for each other, but our community as well. Stanislaus County is a diverse community. This diversity gives our community its flavor. And as any good cook knows, the thoughtful blending of those flavors gives an excellent result. We are proud to share our values, cultures, and traditions with our community. We believe a community that works and blends together thrives. So we stand here today, proud and honored, to proclaim October 2021 as Italian American Heritage Month. Grazie a tutti. Thank you, everyone.
Come on up.
And the group.
So everyone has to love that Vito's presenting to Italian Heritage Month. I call it my people, right, where my dad came from. Unfortunately, I'm only half Italian. My mom is many other things, Irish and English and other things. Come on up, Joe. So we just had a short discussion as I was driving in this morning, knowing I'm going to give this proclamation away. I was thinking about what to say. You always try and prep a little bit. And it reminds me, my dad's an immigrant from Italy, and he got out of a bad situation in Italy. In his mind, it was a bad situation coming out of the Second World War as a kid. And came to Italy, wrote back to his mother after about a year, and told her he was going to die in America. And in our discussions, you think about all the immigrants, and I know we had Hispanic Heritage Month last month, from the 15th, obviously, through the 15th of November. But you think about these people giving up everything, leaving their family, and trying to get here to America. And we were discussing about, how it seems like there's a lot of people at the border right now that want to get in. There's people in the Middle East that want to get in here because they want to change their life. They have such bad circumstances. And they've all contributed. We look at how successful these Italian Americans have been. And I look at my dad as a great example of that. And we need to remember, and I hope the second and third generation, because I'm the first generation, and I don't have that same feeling as my dad. And hopefully my kids understand how bad it was and why people come here to make their lives better. They're escaping something that is, in some instances, so horrendous. And so my dad left his family. Everyone still is back in Italy to come here and make a difference for his family. And I'm very thankful for that. And I'm standing up here because of that. So I'm proud to declare, and I'll read just a little bit of this. I'm not a great reader without my glasses. Whereas I'm an Italian American, my roots are deep in the ancient soil, drenched by the Mediterranean sun and watered by pure streams from snow-capped mountains. I'm enriched by thousands of years of culture. My hands are those of the mason, the artist, the man of the soil. My thoughts have been recounted in the annals of Rome. Hopefully that's the right word. I said that right? Son of a gun. Annals. You say potato, I say potato. Right? No, I really blew it. Lost my place. I'm just not going to... Look at Jody Hayes. He's so proud. He's so proud of his chairman. Therefore, be it resolved. On October 5th. I love myself, and I hope you all love me too. Therefore, be it resolved, the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 as Italian American Heritage Month in Stanislaus County. Upon motion by Supervisor Graywall, seconded by Supervisor Withrow, the foregoing resolution is unanimously adopted September 21st. Thank you all for coming in. I'm going to keep the tradition alive. Supervisor DeMartini would never allow me not to do this, at least while I'm on the board. So I appreciate you coming in and all the contributions to Stanislaus County. Anyone want to say anything?
Thank you.
You okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh, we're going to take a picture first. You take your mask down for the picture.
There you go. Yep.
We're smiling.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to work on that word. I have no idea why I have a sheen of sweat on my forehead now. It's a low bar to be chairman after me, for sure. Thank you all. Okay, we're going to move on to presentation number 2, updates from the sheriff on the community impact of the state prison early release and zero bail. Sheriff Dirksey.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Hayes and Mr. Bose. I think that last presentation will go down in the annals of history.
There you go.
While Angelica is pulling this up for us, what we're going to talk about today is early releases, whether it is from CDCR due to COVID or a variety of other reasons, or it is locally due to zero bail. The early release of inmates, whether they're state prisoners or local inmates, has had some major impacts on our community. So first we're going to talk about the timeline. What you can see in front of you is the timeline of the various early release issues that we have faced. Obviously, everyone is well aware that COVID-19 started last winter, January, February. It started to show up. March 19th was our first stay-at-home order issued by the governor, and subsequently, a few different things went into effect. First of all, you had emergency zero bail release order that was implemented statewide for all counties. So normally bail schedules are set by the 58 superior courts across the state, and our bail schedule may not mirror that of another county, but when the Judicial Council of California issued their zero bail schedule, what it did is it reduced bail for many crimes, most misdemeanors and many felonies, to $0. So by law, if someone was arrested and for one of those crimes, they automatically made bail because it was $0. So that kicked in on April 6th. Subsequently, a week later, on April 13th, Cdcr, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, implemented expedited releases for state prisoners. Now, this was presumably to reduce the risk of COVID that they got in the state, which they did get in state prisons. It went through the prison system quite rampantly. But this was also an opportunity, I believe, for the state to simply get rid of state inmates. They have said that they intended to close 2 state prisons and they wanted to reduce the inmate population, and quite frankly, I believe that COVID was their excuse to do that. Because part of the reason that I say that, I do fully acknowledge that COVID got into the prison system with a fairly major impact. And it's gotten into our local jail. But it can be managed. We have had 4 outbreaks in the local jail, and I'm very proud of my team for managing it professionally without any major impact to either staff or inmates. So I'll stop the digressing for a moment. But as a result of that, what we had for a period of several months is many, many inmates getting released early. So you can see as a result of zero bail, we released 99 inmates within a couple of days because I cannot legally hold them. Cdcr ultimately dumped 30,000 prisoners out of the state system. And these are convicted felons. If you make it to state prison, you have quite a strong criminal resume already. You don't typically go to state prison for your first offense unless it's extremely grievous. In June of last year, the state rescinded zero bail at the state level. However, our local superior court kept it in place until August of this year, at which point they changed the bail schedule. So let me rephrase that. Several felonies fall to the same, the traditional bail schedule, our more egregious offenses, murder, rape, robbery, etc. But several felonies now the bail is $1,000, and for many misdemeanors the bail is $100. So it's no longer zero, but it's an extremely low threshold. That has, however, kept more people in jail, and that is a good thing. As of July 31st of this year, Cdcr has terminated their expedited releases due to COVID. But that does not mean that they have terminated all of their expedited releases. They are still are releasing people for a variety of different reasons, releasing them early for a variety of different reasons, for good time credits, behavior, etc. So there are still inmates that are getting out early. Next slide, please. So first we're going to talk here about the Cdcr expedited releases, and then we'll get into some details on the zero bail here in a moment. But since Cdcr started doing expedited releases, 840 inmates have been released from state prison back into Stanislaus County early. Right, so again, these are fairly major criminals or people who have committed fairly major offenses. So 840 have been released early back into our county. This doesn't, there's 30,000 statewide, and we get just slightly under 1,000. 373 of those have reoffended. So 44% have reoffended within 145 days on average for their first reoffense. So that's what, just shy of 5 months on average, the first reoffense. Of those 373 total reoffenders, most of them on average, they have reoffended slightly over 2 times each. So they are creating a burden on both our criminal justice system, my staff, and a danger to our community because they are out there committing more crimes. 44% within 145 days. I think that is well ahead of the statistical norm that says 70% will reoffend within 3 years. And at our current pace, they're all going to be back in jail before too long. You can see that chart across the bottom, kind of that greenish shaded area. Those are the number of early releases, and then the yellowish bars. You can see the increase over time in reoffender arrests. Next slide. So these are the top 10 expedited release reoffender booking charges. So when they have reoffended, this is what they have reoffended for. And where it says terms violation there at the top, that is like the terms of their parole, i.e. they do not go and check in with their parole agent, right? And if they don't do that within the allocated amount of time, they get a warrant issued for the arrest, a parole violation. Drug offenses, warrant arrest. Now that warrant arrest is for something else. It is not a parole violation. It's a warrant arrest for something else. Weapons charges. If you have gone to state prison, right, you are a convicted felon by definition, and to have weapons charges as being the 4th highest reoffense is fairly disturbing. Now, these are not all firearms, right? They could be knives or other weapons, so not necessarily something that they cannot purchase or acquire, but that is an issue. Drunk in public, assault Stolen vehicle, we historically lead the nation or are near the top in stolen vehicles, and this is one of the reasons why, because we aren't holding these people accountable. Next slide. So with this, what you see in front of you here, of those who were released early, their average sentence that they were sentenced to prison was for 4.4 years. The average amount of time served prior to expedited release was 2.4 years. So functionally, they did slightly more than half of their prison sentence. And this does not include factors like good time credits, time served credits, et cetera, that may have actually made them be released even earlier. This is simply what was removed from their sentence due to COVID. And so half of the time. And with that, they clear, Cdcr, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, based on the statistics we just saw, they're not rehabilitated. And and if they're only serving half of their time, they aren't even being held accountable for the crimes that they did commit. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about zero bail for a moment. Zero bail, so again, the early Cdcr releases, that is driven by the state. Right? The zero bail releases, part of them were driven by the state, right, when the JCC issued its zero bail thing, and then our local superior court kept it in effect for several months, over a year, until just recently when they removed it. But with that, you can see over 6,000 total emergency zero bail releases, which was just shy of 4,500 inmates. Over 2,000 total reoffenders. So 1/3, well, I guess that's 45% on that. That's of the inmates released on, of the inmates, just shy of half of them have reoffended. Or of the total released, basically right about 1/3. Total offender rearrests, again, 4,891, so they are on average reoffending twice. 150 days, right, is the average before they reoffended, so kind of fairly consistent there with our Cdcr releases. They were at 145 days, so typically they're doing 4.5, 5 months before they get rearrested. One individual, our record holder, 34 zero bail rearrests. That is an impact on our system, and that is an impact on our community.
Hey, Sheriff, a quick question on, the other one was how many were released into our community, right?
Correct.
And this is total?
No, the first one that we saw, the chart that looked very similar
Yeah.
to this, that's from Cdcr, state prison. This is what was released from the Stanislaus County Jail due to zero bail. So these individuals are at the county level pre-sentencing, right? So that's where the bail schedule kicks in.
So but the statistics are essentially the same, 44% on the other one, 45% here, 2 arrests per offender.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Got it, thank you.
Quick question, Sheriff. Sheriff, on the 4,891 total reoffender arrests, average of 2 arrests per reoffender. So they go in, come back out, right away, do another one, so it's 4,891 divided by 2, or?
Yeah, so if you look up there, 2,021 total reoffenders,
Okay.
right? So of the 6,100 and, I'm sorry, not that one. So the 6,171 is the total emergency zero bail releases. So a first-time offender is booked, they're ultimately released on zero bail. 4,459 of those inmates reoffended. I'm sorry, I'm confusing myself. They were released on zero bail. So with that, 2,021 reoffended for a total of 4,891 reoffenses. So again, an average, it's slightly over 2. So 4,891 divided by 2,021.
Yeah,
Right. So 2 point, whatever that math is, 2 point something. There's some rounding in here.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Any other questions there? Next slide. So here, similar to that chart that you saw a few moments ago, you can see on the left there, the top 10. EZB is emergency zero bail. That's our acronym for it. So the zero bail release charges, and then the reoffenses the reoffender charges. So you can see drugs top the list on both of them. Trespassing. So a lot of these are, when we talk about homelessness and the impact that that has on our community, these are a lot of the type of crimes that you are going to see from your homeless population. Obstruct or resist, right? So this is 148 of the California Penal Code, right? They're either resisting or obstructing an officer. What we have seen as a result of both of these is that offenders have very little respect for law enforcement because there is functionally no penalty for them. So what? I'm going to get arrested, I'm going to get released, it doesn't matter what I do. And you all can read. We see a lot of the weapons charges were zero bail charges, and what do they do when they reoffend? They go get other weapons, stolen vehicles, right? These are the things that have an impact on our public safety.
Apologize, another
Yes.
question. So you had the $100 for misdemeanor and $1,000 for that, so most of these, this is just $100 and you're out?
That is what it is now as of whatever the
July
date was,
31st,
yes.
yeah.
That is what it is now. So from many of our misdemeanors and some of our felonies, because remember, some of our crimes went back to the original bail schedule. And we have been working with local superior court in the last 18 months to modify this, and to their credit, they have. But we still have very, very low bails set for, again, many of our misdemeanors and several of our felonies. And I can send you the whole list. It's literally pages long that delineates it by crime, right? What qualifies for the original bail schedule and then what qualifies for the newer reduced bail schedule. But what we're talking about here was when zero bail was in effect, the impact that zero bail had on our community.
Just to tie in, you said something about the homeless population, and when you were talking about the fine amount, you said with the 100 and 1,000, it's keeping more people in jail. Is that because some of that population can't even pay the $100 to get out?
Yep, that's correct. And I'll show you the jail population chart here. It's the last slide.
Thank you.
Next one, Angelica. All right, so what you can see up here, this is just a snapshot of some of the reoffenders that we have had. It is clearly not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, and I am not going to cover all 21 of these individuals, but I do want to highlight a couple of cases for you. The top left individual up there is in for murder. They were rearrested. They were where it says CDCR/EZBR, so they were released early from CDCR, and they were also a prior zero bail releasee because a reoffense was done under zero bail, and then they subsequently committed murder. So that individual should have been in state prison when he committed his murder. The next individual was a parole violation. He was a sex offender, rearrested at the victim's workplace. He was an early release from CDCR. The lady that's the third from the right on the top row, arrested for attempted murder, for drugs and weapons, arrested during the investigation that led to the shooting, or as a result of the shooting of Officer Rakaitis from MPD, only one day after her release, and she had previously been released on zero bail. In the second row, the second gentleman from the left, grand theft of a firearm, out on early release for 7 hours on zero bail early release. And early release charges were also for firearms. So within 7 hours of being released from custody due to zero bail, stole another gun. The person middle there on the second row, evading drugs, grand theft, stolen property, rearrested within 5.5 hours. On the bottom row, on the bottom left, that individual carrying a loaded firearm and obstruction, out on early release, zero bail for the same charges, rearrested within 6 hours. So this is putting my team and our community in danger. And while I do acknowledge several of these have stopped or have slowed, we are still getting early releases from the state prison system, not due to COVID any longer, but due to a variety of other factors, again, the good time credits and so on. But all of these other folks are already out in our community. Next slide. So what you see here, this is the average ADP, adult average daily population for our jail. As you can see, the zero bail, the red line there is basically when everything triggered due to COVID. We had changed a number of our policies internally to hold more prisoners or more people that were at least charged with a crime. So you can see that immediately pre-COVID our counts had gone up. As a result of specifically zero bail for this, our counts dropped. But now you can see that we are back up almost to where we were pre-COVID, which is a good thing, right? We, law enforcement collectively, is out there rearresting offenders as fast as we possibly can, and we are keeping them in our jail to the best of our ability. But we still have an awful lot of folks that are out there that should not be out there. And that is it. Gentlemen, subject to your questions, of which I'm assuming there will probably be a few more. Questions?
Just real quick, Jeff, thanks for doing that. So what's so discouraging about this is if you think, we've had this happen before, we've had this kind of dump of prisoners, AB 109, what was that, 9 years ago, 10, a while ago, when that happened. But with that came funding, right? I mean, AB 109 was done as a result of lawsuits. The state prisons were overcrowded, and they had to empty. But with that, as they sent prisoners back to the non-violent, non-sex, non-repeat offenders, they sent them back to our counties. But then we established the Community Corrections Partnership, and we have our own budget, and we fund, and we sit around with all the people involved in our community besides law enforcement and the DAs and public defender and the nonprofits and community-based organizations, all there to figure out how to work with these individuals and how to rehabilitate them. So as bad as we thought that was at the time, we probably do a better job at helping rehabilitate here locally than what was going on at the state prisons. Like we always say, they just went there and learned how to be better bad guys or girls, whatever we want to say. So, but now here we are, another dump of prisoners with no funding, with no money at all, and totally left, in your lap and the other city agencies' laps to deal with these prisoners that are just let out of jail, even though they deserve and have done things to get into, the state prisons and then out of our own jails. So this is more just a commentary, I guess, than anything else. It's very discouraging. There are no consequences for actions, and with that comes the attitude that you guys have to deal with every day, knowing that they'll be right back out on the streets if they get in trouble. So discouraging, no funding, and just a dilemma that we're in. I really think I know COVID had to do with a lot of the zero bail thing, just was just a bad idea. So anyway, that's my commentary for later.
Well, and I fully agree with you on that. There is no funding that comes with this. So as the state now is talking about closing the 2 prisons and is in that process, potentially with a 3rd prison, they're not reallocating that money down to the counties. Right? We aren't seeing that money, ultimately that will come to us because we are going to hold more high-level offenders. So, one of the requests of this board would be to engage with our elected representatives at the state level to say, hey, if you're going to do that, you need to give us the funding to hold these higher-level criminals.
Supervisor Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Sheriff, for your report. Can more be done at the Superior Court level to increase the bail?
Yes. So this current bail schedule of $100 for many of our $100 for many of our misdemeanors and $1,000 for several of our felonies, that is totally under the control of our local Superior Court. And I have infrequent but regular conversations with the presiding judge. The DA and I were just trading texts on this very topic. She and I have been working fairly hard over the last several months, and the courts have agreed on July 31st they did do away with the zero bail, but I would tell you that they need to go back to our traditional bail schedule, and at a minimum, and at least then, if grand theft auto is $10,000, at least someone has to make $10,000 worth of bail to be released. Now, they can always be released when they go to arraignment, but for many of these crimes, especially on that one where you saw like some of the drug offenses, trespassing and so on, they do this so often that we arrest them and rearrest them daily. Sometimes some folks have been arrested twice in one day, but daily or weekly, and there is there is nothing that makes them stop even for, a few days. But if we go back to our traditional bail schedule, it will at least keep many of them, not all, but in custody until they go to arraignment, and then the judge always has the ability to release them, OR them on their own recognizance, or change the bail schedule or whatnot.
Thank you.
Supervisor Graywall?
Thank you for the presentation, Sheriff Dirksey. I know you did an op-ed in the Modesto Bee a few weeks ago, and that was very descriptive of the situation, but seeing it firsthand with this presentation just puts it in a whole different context, even more serious context. Just a couple questions. On early release, you kept referring to good time credit, and I know that, days served if you're good, but once they go back in, do they still get to play in that timeline? Because good time credit, they're rearrested in 5.5, 6 hours.
At Cdcr, yes, they do. Right, so if they return to state prison, all of those same things kick in again, and they have actually changed the good time credit calculation, and this may not be completely accurate, but if it went from 2 days of good time gets you a 1 day credit, they changed it to they increased that, right? So let me rephrase that. 1 day of, say, good time would get you a 2 day credit. Now it's 1 day of good time, I believe, gets you 3 days of credit. So they're just reducing the sentences, and they're letting them out sooner. And what good time credit means is they're basically following the rules in prison. It has nothing to do with rehabilitation, right? It's not, they have not fixed themselves necessarily. They're simply following the rules. Maybe they attend a class. And I do realize that rehabilitation is the $1 million question, or maybe $1 billion at this point, right? But if we could truly have a definitive system for rehabilitation, which I think would be wonderful, but that, if that truly existed, we could solve this problem. I realize that this is a very pie in the sky type of thing, but the point is we have to do a better job of either A, holding them accountable for the sentence and to make them serve the sentences that they are actually sentenced to in their entirety, or we need to make sure that they are definitively rehabilitated at a much higher rate than they are now.
That's why I was asking the question. Good time credit just kind of seems like as long as you don't do anything that goes out of the norm, that's good time, because it's not helping with the rehabilitative if you're going back right in for the same type of behavior. Nothing's changed.
Absolutely.
So for our local communities, because I hear this all the time, and people are concerned, and listening to this and hearing about it, obviously should be concerned. When they do these types of releases, are there any advanced warnings that your office gets, or logistical support as far as state troopers that come and help you with probation or the courts, or is it just once they're released, it's kind of your responsibility?
The answer to that is yes and no. During COVID, we were getting some early release advance warning of, we're going to be releasing X amount. We were being provided with lists. But with that, it's really just a notification of this is what's going to happen. And I don't know if Chief Ferrer is here from probation. And I won't speak for probation, but I know that on several occasions, specifically due to COVID releases, Cdcr was releasing COVID-positive inmates that when they arrived here, we were responsible for housing. We had to put some of them up in hotels, right, which, again, the taxpayer is now paying for because they had housing, right, in state prison, but now they're letting them out, and we're having to put them up in hotels. They immediately violate the terms because the probation department was putting them on GPS ankle monitors, and on a few occasions, literally within a matter of hours, they're violating the terms of their parole and then their COVID quarantine. Now we have to go rearrest them. Probation handled that part, and now we get a COVID-positive inmate getting booked into our jail. So that is sort of a long answer to yes, there was some level of advance warning on that. Outside of the general relief packages that were provided, no, there was no separate funding for that. And no, there was no state-level assistance. Actually, quite the contrary. I can't tell you the number of arguments that the sheriffs across the state had with Cdcr. I personally spoke to the chair or the director of Cdcr on a couple of occasions that were slightly heated conversations. So there was not any real advance warning or any real help.
And then you talked about 2 jails being closed and then potentially 3, and then COVID struck, so obviously it put a lot of stuff in disarray. But with these serious crimes, how much capacity do you have at your jail to encumber all of these prisoners because of the closure of all these jails?
Yeah, we are fortunate in Stanislaus County in that we have, as a result of the realignment monies that built our newest jail, East specifically, and REACT, which is the reentry facility. But East is a maximum security level, basically a state prison level jail. We have the ability to safely and effectively house these folks. So that we are very fortunate in that regard. The challenge comes with capacity. We have the bed space, and it's a somewhat separate discussion, but there is still this issue of phase 3 staffing. As we built the facilities, we never staffed them completely. So ultimately, to fill every bed that we have, we'll ultimately need more staffing. We can have that discussion later. But we do have the ability to hold a significant number of these folks. But remember, we are not receiving any funds from the state to do that. Here's the other issue, is state prisons were originally built and designed for high-level offenders, convicted felons. The jail system was originally designed for our lower-level offenders, and I'm talking now once they are sentenced, right? So drunk drivers, trespassers, petty thieves, etc. What we have seen over the last 10 years is that we now functionally run a prison, and our ability to hold low-level offenders has been reduced dramatically because we are forced to hold higher-level offenders. So when we start talking about issues like holding the homeless accountable, or whatever the case may be, our space, our capacity for those lower-level offenses is greatly reduced because we are now holding more folks that should be in state prison.
You already touched upon the resources, that we're not getting anything. And I agree with what you said. Frankly, this approach just isn't working, and traditional bail is probably the best way to make sure that we alleviate some of these concerns, because with that 100 and 1,000, I know for some populations it's hard, but in the bigger scheme of things, for a felony and all you're paying is $1,000, it doesn't provide that same level of responsibility.
And here's the other thing to remember about paying $1,000. If you call a bail bondsman, you only have to pay $100. The bail bondsman covers the other 90%. And so, again, it's a fairly low threshold for someone to meet so that they can get back out.
So for the 100, it's $10?
Yes, potentially.
All right. Well, again, proves my point, just going back to the traditional bail schedule. Sorry for all the questions, but I appreciate the presentation.
That's why we're here. And
Very
quite
educating.
frankly, I forgot to acknowledge this at the front end. This presentation is actually as a result of your request a couple months ago. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Supervisor Condon?
Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate your presentation. I just was curious, have you shared this data with our state legislators? Are
Yes.
they aware how serious the problem
Yeah.
is? And have they offered up any sort of legislative fix?
Well, I will tell you that both Adam Gray and Heath Flora, our two assemblymen, prior to the op-ed that I released a couple months ago, I actually sent them a copy in advance, and we corresponded over that. And they are both in firm agreement that this current system is not working. And that's both a Republican and a Democrat. So they're kind of on both sides of the aisle here, but they acknowledge that this isn't working. And while they are on board with making the change, they are 2 of 80, and certainly don't represent the majority at this point.
Sure. No, I'm aware of that. Are you aware of any sort of legislation coming from both our assembly members, possibly?
Not that I'm aware of right now.
Okay. All right. Maybe we can sit down and further encourage them to introduce something. I think A for effort, right?
Absolutely, but I also suspect for them, in their defense, it'll be like pushing a wet snowball up the hill.
Well, sometimes you got to push on it.
Yes, you do.
Okay, any other questions? All right, Jeff, thank you. So I think what we'd like to do is maybe direct staff, if we could, and maybe even a letter signed by the chair to our legislators to Sacramento requesting, funding for this. It's just, it's another one of what we call these unfunded mandates. Basically, it's
Yep.
kind of where we are. We're having to deal with the state's problems. The state takes the money that they're saving, and who knows what they're doing with that. And so it would be great if we could have a letter that came from the board asking for help for what they've, and I'm sure if we really looked at the financial costs to this county as a result of these, through these charts and these arrests, I mean, we're talking probably get into the millions of dollars here.
Absolutely.
So anyway, if we could, let's get a letter.
Yeah,
What
that would
about
be
a-
great.
Mr. Chairman, what about a letter to our presiding judge here locally too, to increase bail amounts?
That'd be great too. Yeah, I mean, that twofold. Let's work with the
Yes.
state legislators and let's talk with our local judges.
I would support both of those.
Yeah, that's okay with everybody. Let's do
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Very good. All right, Jeff. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you.
I just wanted to acknowledge we're receiving your request, and we will prepare two different draft letters, and we'll work closely with the sheriff to make sure that it is aligned with the presentation you saw this morning.
Very good. Okay, thank you. And thanks, Sheriff. Okay, we will move on to item 4, an update related to COVID-19. And we have Mary Ann and Julie, Dr. V. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to begin with our update this morning, looking at our testing and hospitalizations again, our cases and hospitalizations. So here we see our epi curve again, and you can see our blue for PCR confirmed and our green for our probable cases, primarily antigen again. And you can see we continue to come down from our peak in mid to later August, and so we are still seeing a decrease, and we certainly hope that continues, so that we can get transmission down, get our hospitals open back up. Instead of showing the other curves that I usually show, I just thought I'd point to our dashboard, because we do show this on our dashboard. And so this is a screenshot of our dashboard, and as you look inside that purple box, you can see that our case rate, this was as of October 3, because I took this screenshot yesterday morning, was 26.3. So we've come down from the mid-50s down to 26, and I think we'll continue to see some decrease, at least over the next week, we know, because this is the 7-day leg of the 7-day case average. So good news there, continuing to see cases, but decreasing. Then as we look at our testing tab on our dashboard, our testing percent positive, we're down to 7. I think we peaked up about 13 or so. So definitely nice to see that cut in half. And you can see our test turnaround is about 1.35 days. So continues to stay just about a day or two for our testing. Our testing is about 462.5 per 100,000 per day on average, and so we're still seeing a good deal of testing going on, which is great. Here's our graph of our hospitalizations and ICU, and you can see the orange being those hospitalized from our peak of about 313. We are now down, as of yesterday, to 153, so that's great. It's been cut in half. We still have a ways to go, because we know our hospitals are still very, very full with much non-COVID. But at least the COVID surge you can see coming down. Our ICU also is decreasing. It always is a little bit slower than other hospitalizations, because people stay in the ICU longer once they're there, but also decreasing. So really good news on all those fronts. As we look at our vaccination, you can see that we aren't seeing any increase in vaccination for sure. In fact, our average daily vaccination has dropped below 1,000 again. Not entirely sure why. Boosters get approved, and we haven't seen any real desire for additional vaccines in this county. We are giving some, and that is included in there, but you don't see any sort of bump with a booster for the Pfizer recommendation. So we'll continue to watch this. We continue to vaccinate many different sites every day. And so if we look at our overall vaccine coverage by age, in our eligible population, which is the second to last bar of 12 plus years, you can see it's about 54.9%. And our adults, I put that in because CDC often quotes adult numbers. So 18 plus were 56.9%. So still many people that are eligible yet to be vaccinated. So there was some messaging about pregnancy and a lot of data that are coming out, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. So we know that pregnant women are at increased risk for many adverse outcomes, both to themselves and to their pregnancy and to their infant. So these data just came out in the last couple weeks. So compared to non-pregnant women of reproductive age with COVID-19, someone who was pregnant was more than twice as likely to be admitted to an ICU, and more than 2.5 times as likely to need a ventilator for respiratory support. So we're seeing some adverse outcomes to the pregnant women. And then when you compare pregnant women with COVID to pregnant women without COVID, maternal death is almost 3 times more likely, preterm birth 1.5 times more likely, stillbirth more likely at almost 3 times, and needing the baby to be admitted to a neonatal ICU is almost 5 times more likely. So we're seeing a lot of adverse outcomes, especially with this Delta wave in pregnant women. Vaccination really is the answer to protect pregnant women against disease. So I wanted to highlight one of the ways that data are being gathered, and these were presented at ACIP, so that link is there. That's the advisory committee to the CDC. They presented these 2 weeks ago, and then a lot of these data were also presented at ID Week, which is the national conference that occurred last week. And so you can see that people who sign up, they're getting a phone call in their first trimester, another phone call in their second trimester, another phone call in their third trimester, at birth and postpartum, and then again in early infancy. So this is an active surveillance, carefully following up on pregnant women all the way through delivery in the first couple months of life of the baby's life. And so here is the data that they've collected so far. It's over 5,000 pregnant women, and you can see when they were vaccinated. So most of them were vaccinated in the second trimester, which is over 2,000 women, over 1,000 in their third trimester, over 1,000 in their first, and then very few periconceptual, which means within 30 days prior to becoming pregnant. So a hard timing to do, so but there are 277 of those. And here is what they've looked at. So obviously people that got vaccinated in their third trimester, they were healthcare workers. So you can see this is a graph that shows it by timing, by delivery month, right? So there were some that got vaccinated and delivered in December of 2020, January, February. Then in March, you can see people who were vaccinated in their second trimester, March, April, May, delivering. In June, you start seeing people delivering who were vaccinated in their first trimester. So there's been a lot of data gathered on vaccination in all 3 trimesters. I know we've had public comments saying it hasn't been 9 months, you can't possibly have any data, but that would only be if you were vaccinated right at conception or before conception. But we have a lot of data on people vaccinated versus during pregnancy. And what we've really seen is the benefits of the vaccine far outweigh the risks of getting COVID during pregnancy or the risks of any vaccine side effects. There's really good evidence that vaccine protects against severe disease. We've seen that in non-pregnant women, and there are data in pregnant women. There is no evidence from this active follow-up to show that getting a vaccine increases the risk of miscarriage, and I know I presented that a couple weeks ago. No evidence of preterm birth. In fact, it protects against that. No evidence of any birth defect, and there's no evidence of any fertility problem from this vaccine or any vaccine. So I know I presented some of these data before. But here is the new information. Again, CDC has put out from a different safety monitoring system, the Vaccine Safety Data Link, that's looking at vaccination in pregnancy. And what you can see is less than 40% of pregnant women are vaccinated. It's only about 33%, if I remember right. I'm going to show you in a minute. And what you can see here is the light blue at the bottom of those who are vaccinated prior to pregnancy, with all 3 vaccines. And then the orange is prior to and during, which means they got either Pfizer or Moderna, and they had the first dose before pregnancy and the second dose during pregnancy. And then the dark blue at the top is those who are vaccinated during pregnancy. So you can see we're not getting a lot of pregnant women vaccinated. And when we look at it by race and ethnicity, it's actually pretty bad for people of color. You can see the bottom orange line is our black pregnant women at only about 16%, which is terrible. Black women already have higher maternal mortality, they have higher infant mortality, and so These data that I first saw last week, I think are going to focus some of our efforts in really trying to reach out to specifically pregnant women and try to promote vaccination to protect both them and their baby. So here, if you hover over these, this is from the CDC website, their data. You can see the numbers by race and ethnicity. Hispanic, Latino are the next lowest, I believe. And then you see other and white, and at the top, Asian. So we can see the numbers there. They're still very much lower than the general population numbers, and definitely an opportunity for outreach and addressing this need for vaccination and education in this community. So COVID-19, influenza, and pertussis vaccines are all currently recommended for pregnant people during pregnancy. They protect the mother and they protect the baby because antibodies are delivered to the baby before they're born, and so those babies are protected for the first months of life. Extremely important with pertussis because that kills the little babies before the age of 2 months when they get their first DTaP or pertussis vaccine. So this is joining the list of vaccines that are just imperative to give in pregnancy for protection of both. And then lastly, I wanted to address, the governor made an announcement last Friday of a vaccination requirement for school children. I don't know that much about it, but what I know is that this is the state requirement will go when the vaccines have full FDA approval, and we know right now only 16 to 17s have the full approval of the rest are under authorization. They will use the state regulatory process for this requirement, which under the Health and Safety Code listed there requires medical and personal belief exemptions to be accepted. It'll be effective the following term after all of these steps are taken through. So January 1, that's highly unlikely. July 1, maybe, perhaps even January 1 the following year. And phased in by grade span, K through 6th will go at once, 7th through 12th will go, and all of that is under full approval. So this is a long-term look. It's not something imminent. I'm sure there's going to be much more information coming, but it's created a lot of news, and I wanted to just bring it up here to just say what I know, which I don't think is that much yet. And lastly, I wanted to close with a little bit about wellness because we hear a lot about that. So, it's really great to practice healthy habits for everyone. It's for best physical and mental health. Extremely important for mental health as well. Eating healthy foods, exercising. Don't smoke or use any tobacco products. It doesn't matter how to use them, especially oral. Lots of cancers from all of those. Not to mention heart disease. We could pretty much eliminate cancer and most heart disease if we could just get rid of tobacco products. And risk factors for COVID as well. Sleep, get adequate sleep. Mindfulness, because that really helps your mental health, and mental health is linked to physical health, so it really does help you stay healthy. And then for viral respiratory diseases such as COVID-19, such as flu, the regular things we say every year during flu season, and we've said all COVID, you need to stay home if you're sick, you need to wash your hands often, stay away from sick people, pay attention to ventilation, outdoor better than indoor, bigger rooms better than smaller rooms, distancing, because the closer you are to someone, the more likely you're going to get it. Wear a mask and get vaccinated. Getting vaccinated is the easiest one-time thing, or 2 or 3, that you can do to protect yourself from all viral respiratory diseases. I will pass it on to Mary Ann.
Okay, thank you. When I was here last week, I mentioned that I would give more information this time with regard to the available outpatient treatments that many have been hearing about, the monoclonal antibodies. And a couple things I wanted to point out. It's not for everyone. It is intended to limit the progression to severe disease, and it's available only for certain eligible individuals. So there's 2 uses that I have up here. One as treatment for mild to moderate COVID-19, so that would be in someone who's already tested positive. And again, it's to avoid the progression into a more severe COVID-19. It also has the FDA emergency use authorization as a preventive measure for individuals who have been exposed or who are at high risk of exposure, particularly because of infection that is already present in a congregate setting. It is for those that because of their current circumstances, are at high risk of the disease progression, and haven't been vaccinated, or because of their underlying condition are believed to not have been able to mount an adequate immune response. As far as what we're doing in our emergency response operations, we're working with the healthcare system. This isn't something that public health would do. This is something that is under a physician's order of treatment. But we are working with the medical community, trying to expand access, and that is a work in progress. The other thing I want to point out is that when you look at that first category, those would be for those that they're infectious. They've tested positive for COVID-19, and so in that circumstance, there are additional requirements for the treating provider in terms of a negative pressure room or doing it outdoors. So it's not as easy as just saying, well, any kind of treatment that any physician would give, well, why can't they just do this? There are some other circumstances involved. Right now, there is a shortage of supply. So the federal government has, at this point, it's on an allocation basis, but hopefully that's a temporary situation. Let's see, and then I would just say that individuals who think they may be eligible really should seek guidance from their healthcare provider. Okay, this is the familiar, just trying to encourage people to go to My Turn on the website or call. In the last week, I believe My Turn has added some functionality to include the ability to schedule for a flu shot as well. And this, for the public, these are the web addresses to get to our website, where we have quite a bit of information. I mentioned last week that we were revamping our website to try to make it easier for the user to find what they're looking for. So this is what it looks like. You can't read it really on the screen, but on the right-hand side there are links too. And I wanted to point out that we don't have all the information that's available on our website, and we strategically try not to duplicate information that maybe is on CDPH or CDC, where there's other access points for that information. So the links are there, though. So if somebody's looking for something they're not finding that we've put up, hopefully they can go to that link, and they certainly have access to a good deal more information. On our website, we have the weekly newsletter, and it gives the opportunity for individuals to ask questions. Each week, we take a look at the questions that have come in and have come in from call center questions, and try to, in the next edition, the next weekly edition, try to answer those questions. So that's one way to ask us specific information. And that is all that we prepared for you this morning, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you guys both. Any questions for Dr. V or Mary Ann? Just one. That's great. No questions. Yeah. Just one quick thing. Thanks, Mary Ann, for this thing on the monoclonal antibodies. Thank you for getting back to us on that. So when you say we're trying to do some outreach, maybe educate as far as healthcare providers with regard to this, and then also hopefully, since we do all the testing, or we do a lot of testing. I know there's other people doing testing, but that we can, upon the positive test, that we could provide materials and recommendations. Go see your healthcare provider. Here's some options potentially that you could do. Anyway, so is that something we're thinking of?
That is what we already do in terms of giving that guidance to check with your healthcare provider. We're going to stop short of giving a recommendation on what is appropriate for them, because that's really
not our job. Yeah.
Not just the physicians.
Right.
Yeah.
But hopefully the physicians will start to have this available, we hope, in the area. Then very good. But thank you for bringing this back. Okay. Okay. Seeing no other questions. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We will move on now to public comment. And this is the time period for anything that is not on the agenda, and for 5 minutes for someone to speak. I have one speaker card here today, and it is Steve. Steve Morrow, come on up. I've said this before, Steve, but we miss you at our office. I know you're enjoying retirement, but we always
Thank you very much.
Your work on our copy machines. You did a great job. So.
Thank you very much for that. The reason I came to speak this morning was triggered by an article that printed in yesterday's B. Our whole world seems to be getting more and more impatient. The need to get place in place to stay connected, so we wind up burying our faces in these devices just because we're so concerned about missing stuff. We read stuff online, summaries, because we don't want to take the time to actually sit and read a good book. But the worst of it seems to happen when we get behind the wheel, and the need to get everything done immediately causes us to do a lot of stupid things behind the wheel. And I count myself in on that, so I'm going to apologize to the sheriff, and I promise to do better. But we all see it with running red lights, crazy stuff on the freeway. I-5 heading to Los Angeles is a speedway, and you're just going to get run off the road. But what triggered all of this is people are not giving pedestrians the right of way in crosswalks. And we had a terrible incident 3 weeks ago where a woman was walking her grandchildren to school on Orangeburg Avenue, and a driver ran into them while they were in the crosswalk. Now, fortunately, the boy wasn't hurt. The grandmother has a broken leg, but the little girl has been in a coma for 3 weeks, at least as of yesterday's article. So what can we do about that? Well, first off, we're probably going to need to make some changes, but we also have to get all the facts from all of the investigating agencies, rather than just make a snap judgment, and we don't have all the facts yet. Investigation's not done. But the thing that we can do for ourselves is take a breath. Don't bury our noses in our devices all the time, but have a conversation with your family or friends or work colleagues. Take the time to read a book and for some quiet meditation, and you might actually learn something. But the thing that we have to do when we remember to get behind the wheel is just take it easy. Watch what we're doing. Remember to yield to pedestrians. That's a little thing that we all can do, because if we just calm down a little bit behind the wheel, the life that we save might be our own. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning.
Stephen, thank you. Good words of wisdom there. Thank you for being here. Okay, that's the only speaker card that I have. Is there anybody else who would like to speak that didn't turn in a card? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our, do we have any written acknowledgments? Okay, nothing's come in. Very good. Okay, we'll move on to our consent calendar. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at that. Supervisor Graywall. Manny.
Chair, I would just like to take item number 7 real quick off the consent calendar just to make a comment.
Item 7.
It's regarding
Community Development Funds.
Sorry, 8. Friends of the Library Week, Stanislaus County.
Okay, very good. All right, is there anybody from the audience that would like to pull anything from the consent calendar? Seeing none, okay, let's go ahead and see if we can get a motion for everything except for item 8.
Make a motion to accept the consent calendar except for item A8.
We have a motion. Do we have a
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passed unanimously. Okay, item A8. Manny.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to pull this item to publicly thank the Friends of the Library for all their hard work and commitment for serving during COVID-19. I had a great meeting with our librarian last week, Sarah Denton, and she told all the challenges because of COVID-19, but they have not missed a beat. They're still serving everybody in Stanislaus County, so I really appreciate that, and I appreciate all the updates and her long-term plans, and I'll be presenting a resolution to their virtual meeting coming up next week. So once again, thank you to the Friends of the Library. A big asset to our community. I told her that as a kid, that was the funnest part of my summer vacation, was being at reading room at the Stanislaus County Library in Modesto.
Very good. You were a much better student than I was, obviously. Good job. Okay, thanks, Manny. Okay, we'll look for a motion then on that.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Jody?
Thank you, Vice Chair Withrow. I need to just make a very quick announcement that With your approval of today's consent calendar, the board has appointed Jennifer Jennison to the position of Public Defender for Stanislaus County, and I wanted to recognize that appointment. Code section does require us to read into the record her salary and benefits plan, so I want to acknowledge that her salary will be $96.15 per hour, approximately $200,000 per year. Jennifer will receive a benefits package consistent with the county's department head's benefits package, and we want to thank all the board members for your support and work throughout the recruitment and selection process. We're very, very excited and eager to work with Jennifer Jennison in this new position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will move on to item 8, discussion item acceptance of an update on the Stanislaus Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Tina Rocha. Good morning, Tina. Hopefully some good news today.
There's always some good news,
Yes.
right? Okay. Well, good morning, Vice Chairperson, board members, CEO Hayes, County Council Bowes, and members of the public. Tina Rocha, Deputy Executive Officer with Stanislaus County. With me today is Linda Del Carlo, an administrative analyst with the Stanislaus Regional Housing Authority. And we are here to provide you not only with an update on our existing Stanislaus Emergency Rental Assistance Program, but we're also here to ask for support to authorize participation in the State Rental Assistance Program 2. Just for some quick grounding, back in December of 2020, Congress passed the Consolidated Appropriations Act. That is what first funded the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Out of that, the county received a direct allocation of $10 million from the U.S. Treasury, and we also received an additional $10.7 million of a reservation from the funds that the state received. Those original expenditure deadlines were, for our federal allocation, were December 31st of this year, and the state program reservation was September 30th of this year. Just a quick overview of eligibility and priority. Just as a reminder, eligible households needed to have an income at or below 80% of the area median income. They had to qualify for unemployment or have experienced a reduction in household income, incurred significant costs, or experienced a financial hardship due to COVID. And that is important to point out. It did have to be due to COVID. And they also needed to demonstrate a risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability. And the priorities were for renter households at or below 50% of the area median income, and then renter households in which one or more household members was unemployed and had been unemployed for 90 days. And at the bottom of the screen, you can see the income levels. So for a family of 4, that 50% AMI level means they're making no more than $35,000 a year. So on our timeline, in January, the state of California passed the COVID-19 Tenant Relief Act, and that in addition to extending the tenant eviction protections that they had already put in place, it also limited the emergency rental assistance program arrears to only paying 80% and asking landlords to waive 20%. And we've talked about that quite a bit when we've been here before you. And that if the landlord did not agree, then the maximum amount that could have been paid on behalf of or to the tenants would have only been 25%. So when the state rental assistance program first came out, there were 3 options. We could have had the state administer both our federal dollars and the state reservation. We could have drawn down the state funds and run it locally. But we did have to follow the state guidelines under both of those options. And as we've talked about before, we did not think that asking our local landlords to waive that 20% was going to be viable. So the board supported what we call the Deferred Option B, and we were going to run our local program under our guidelines at 100% arrears. And then when our funds were exhausted, we were going to draw down our state reservation and then run it under the state guidelines. So we did develop our local Stanislaus Emergency Rental Assistance Program in conjunction with the City of Modesto, who also received funding. We had our fiscal agent who is here with us today, Stanislaus Regional Housing Authority. We had application intake assistance from several credit unions, and we also developed a mobile outreach team. And then we also had phone assistance provided by the United Way. As we shared with you in August, there were some challenges with the program that we encountered. These were shared by our fiscal agent, the Stanislaus Regional Housing Authority. Some of those included that there were no program-wide standard operational guidelines when this program was rolled out from the Treasury. The federal reporting requirements are much more extensive and exceed requirements for current housing and similar subsidy programs. There were strict warnings against fraud with agencies responsible to pay back any misspent funds. We were non-responsive in submittal of supporting documentation. And then there was also many renters had the impression that they did not need to pay rent during the pandemic, not necessarily because of COVID, but just because there was a moratorium. So we are presenting an update on our program data. My apologies, the date slipped off the top, and this is as of September 30th, 2021. I would like to point out, and I'm sure everybody's eyes are going to go to that denial rate, which is quite high at that 92%. If you will recall, when we were here in August, between the application in progress and the wait list, there was approximately 3,200 applications. And one of the things that we had talked about was going in and really updating that wait list to make sure that we were focusing on those applications that were near complete and that the applicants were still involved in this process and moving forward. So since we were here last, the Housing Authority and our other partners have gone through to update that wait list. That was done through a minimum of 4 email contacts with the applicants and a follow-up phone call. As a result, there were, you can see several, substantial amount were removed from either the in-process or wait list and moved to the denied category. There were several reasons that the Housing Authority found for these denials, including no COVID-related hardship, which is one of the requirements from the U.S. Treasury guidelines. The applicant was a homeowner, and as we've talked before, this is a tenant-based program where the tenant's household it has to be eligible. It's not based on the homeowner or the landlord. Tenants were residing outside of the county, and again, this is a county program. A large number of incomplete applications were denied after the applicants failed to provide additional information. So it may have been of the 12 steps that needed to be completed, they only had 2, and there was just no response after those 4 emails and the phone call being made to them. And then there was also occasions when applicants would abandon the application process upon learning that the payments would be made directly to the landlord and or utility company and that they wouldn't be going to the tenant. So remember, it's based on the tenant's eligibility, but then the payments would be made directly to the landlord or to the utility company to cure those arrears. So since we've been here, we have assembled some other staff to assist with this, members of our CSA team here at the county, as well as the workforce development and the City of Modesto. It also allocated staff. And so through that process, we have increased the number of applications being reviewed. Payments are now being processed at least three times a week. Applications are being processed daily. And we have definitely made some strides and getting rental and utility assistance out to our residents. So we're going to jump back on our timeline again. And in March, Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act, or known as ARPA. And in that, they appropriated an additional about $21.5 billion for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So out of that funding, there was an additional $12.7 million that was allocated to Stanislaus County. And then Stanislaus County is also receiving an additional approximately $9.5 million from the state program as a reservation once again. This has a much longer time frame for expenditure. We have until December 31st of 2025 for this funding source. And then in June, the state of California passed Assembly Bill 832. This made some important changes to the Tenant Relief Act that they had adopted back in January. It addressed many of the programmatic challenges that we were concerned about, which is why we adopted and stood up our own local program. Namely, it increased the rental arrears payment to 100%, which was very important to us. And it also extended the funding deadline for their Round 1 reservations from December 31st out to September 30th of 2022. So in February, for the State 1 rental assistance reservation, the board had supported that Deferred B option. We were going to run our local program and then draw down the state funds after we had exhausted ours. Well, back on August 31st, we came back to the board and we asked if you would support, rather than us continuing to run a local program after we had exhausted our federal dollars, we thought at this time it would be more advantageous to go ahead and have the state run the state reservation on our behalf. A variety of reasons, but mainly they were now paying 100%. The time frame had been extended. When we had stood up our local program, we thought it was going to be a much shorter 6 to 9 month duration. We thought it would be better to leverage the state resources, which are able to scale much more quickly to address the increasingly complex program requirements that we seem to get weekly from the Treasury. And it would also allow our fiscal agent, Stanislaus Regional Housing Authority, for their team to redirect their resources and focus on development of new housing units in our community, which we desperately need. So before you is update on the State Rental Assistance Program 1. This is the data as of September 30th. The state had received just shy of 1,200 cases or initiated applications that could have come through tenants or landlords. Total funds requested are just shy of $12.5 million. This represents both rent and utilities assistance requested, and it could be arrears and prospective assistance as well. Total funds approved are about $2.8 million. This means that it's passed through the eligibility review process and that the tenant has been notified that it has gone through and that payments will be being processed out to their landlord or utility companies. And then the state has a little longer process on how they do their actual funds. So when you see the total funds paid out, about $219,000 on behalf of 24 households, that means checks have actually been cut out to the landlords and utility companies. Okay, so that was
Just a quick
yes.
question on the last slide. So the
Thank you.
difference for the $218,000 is checks have been already cut on the last slide.
I don't know if I can go back. There we go.
Yeah, so the $218.92 you just mentioned that the checks have been cut. So the $2 million, the bigger number, they've just been notified. What's the time frame once from approval at that level to actually getting a check cut?
Yeah, what we're hearing from the state is about 2 weeks, and that also depends if the landlord or utility company has requested a check or a wire transfer, ACH, I think is the other term. So it depends on how they choose to accept that payment. That can affect the timing.
ACH is probably more expeditious than the check, right? So probably about a 2 week window.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So that was a look back on what we have been doing. So this is a look forward. And as I showed earlier, we have received round 2 funding from the U.S. Treasury. We've already received about, I think it was 40% of that was paid up front, and our auditor controller received that and has it sitting nicely in an account somewhere. And with our state reservation amount. So again, the state has 3 options for us. We can have the state administer both our federal and state. We could draw it down locally and run it, or we could do a hybrid, which would mean we would run our local dollars or federal dollars and the state would run the state funds. For all the reasons that we discussed earlier and why we had asked the board to support moving to the state administering our round one state reservation, we would like the board to support having the state run not only our federal allocation for round two, but also our state reservation for round two. As explained before, these funds are going out through 2025. Our local program was not designed with that length of time in mind. And again, there are many, many regulations that are changing, and the state does have the ability to scale up and manage that in a much more expeditious manner. They will also handle all of the reporting to the U.S. Treasury, which is can be quite burdensome and time-consuming. So we just see a lot of benefits for our community in moving forward with this model.
Tina, can I just real quick, so.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so the total here of whatever that 40, 41, almost $42 million, when you come to that. So we're saying that we're going to let the state administer not only program 2, but also back to program 1? Are we going to continue to administer what we had in program 1 until it's exhausted?
Yes. And this will be a little easier to see on this chart. So great question. Thank you for leading into that.
Sorry.
Did you see my slide?
Okay,
so as a quick overview, that very top line with our federal era program 1 allocation of approximately $10 million, we would continue to administer that locally with our partner network that we have set up. As of August 31st, the board had supported having the state, which is it's the California Department of Housing and Community Development that is actually administering this. They are currently administering for us that state era program 1 reservation, which is approximately $10.7 million. And what we would be asking the board to support today is that the bottom two lines there that you're seeing in the light blue, the federal era program 2 allocation of $12.7 million and the state era program 2 reservation of $9.5 million be administered by the state. And with that, we do have 4 staff recommendations for your consideration. One would be to accept an update on our Stanislaus Emergency Rental Assistance Program. The second would be to adopt a resolution authorizing participation in the State Rental Assistance Program 2, which would cover both the state and our federal funding for round 2. Authorize the Chief Executive Officer or his designee to negotiate and execute agreements with the California Department Housing Community Development Department related to administering both the state and federal emergency rental assistance program funds too, and then authorize the auditor controller to make the necessary budget adjustments. And then happy to answer any questions.
Very good. All right, Tina, thank you. And Linda, thank you. I didn't acknowledge you to begin with. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Just real quick, just one quick thing. So back to the federal, which we will continue to administer. As far as the priority of the funding, we said I think approximately $900,000 so far we had actually dispersed out. I think that's what one of the early slides said. So does that $900,000 comes out of the federal funding so far? That's what we've administered. So we've still got a long ways to go, it sounds like, just to get through the $10 million. I understand there was a lot of applications that weren't valid or didn't qualify, which really held everything up. But it seems like we're going to still be administering for a while here. It sounds like we're recommending that we have the state take over, but it might be a while before our job is done. Is that correct, Tina?
Well, so we see it has definitely sped up on the review and getting dollars out the doors. And jump in if I'm not saying something correctly here, Linda, on the technical side. We are assessing right now, based on that cleanup of the wait list, how much is remaining in requested funds. So we want to make sure, are we oversubscribed with our $10 million, or are we undersubscribed? And if we are undersubscribed, then we would be coming back to the board with some recommendations on how we could deploy some of those other funds.
Okay.
So we're still in that assessment phase. I don't have a more solid answer right now, but we're still looking at those numbers.
So potentially that, it just seems like, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, is what I keep thinking. We haven't got these funds out there, but maybe there are people who don't qualify, so maybe that's a good thing that they, does that mean that they aren't in need of it? Because I guess maybe they just don't fit the criteria, that the strings that come with this money. But,
Right.
and what's your assessment kind of the need out there?
Do you want to? Good morning, Vice Chair, and Supervisors. I'd have to agree. Yeah, as of right now, we cleaned the wait list, and we did see that the denial number increased because applicants, their income didn't qualify any longer. There's no more COVID-related reason why they would qualify. So there are various reasons why, but you make a good point. There could be an increase of just not needing the program also. So you make a good point with that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Tina and Linda, thank you for your report. Just curious, our denial rate was 92%, right? Since the state has taken over that portion, what has been their denial rate? Do you know?
I don't know that. I can ask them. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I was just wondering if that was because, didn't the rule change with the having on the state side that the landlord could initiate the process, right? And the local, we could not do that, or we could not accept that.
So let me, do you want to? Yeah, well, actually, the state has a different denial rate because they have a pre-screen. We don't have an initial pre-screening. We encourage everyone to apply, so that could be a factor of why their denial rate is different than ours, because we don't have a pre-screening. We encourage everyone to go through the application process, and so.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
That's a good question.
Thanks, Buck. Anybody else? Okay. So this just is kind of perplexing a little bit. You know, we have all this money, over $42 million, and it's just not getting out there. And so, and then, like I said, we wonder, is the need not there? And I know the need still is there to help people pay their rent. They just don't qualify as a result of maybe the criteria that's here. And I know we have no control over that. So I wonder, even in the state's mind and the federal government's mind, across the country, across the state, across the country, if everybody's experiencing this same problem with getting these funds out. Do you guys have any indication? Have you talked to any other counties? Is anybody else dealing with?
As far as I know, it's been universal. There's been challenges with this. Barbara Koss, and I'm going to channel Barbara for just a minute, so I'm not quoting her, but this is what I've heard Barbara say before, who's the executive director of Stanislaus Regional Housing Authority. You know, part of the challenge was that the way the program was developed with the Treasury is it's based on the tenant's income. And so if you have a tenant that isn't willing to participate, you still have landlords that aren't getting paid. Mm-hmm. And so I know she has shared before, it would have maybe been more helpful had it been a landlord-based program, right, where you're assisting the landlords who are in arrears, which is also in turn going to be assisting the tenant. So, and I don't want to speak on her behalf, but that's been the general, her general thoughts that she shared before, and she shared those publicly, and I think she was even interviewed yesterday on Channel 10 about that. So I think, there are some constraints. Maybe it wasn't, when it's promoted to, maybe the public isn't really clear. They just hear rental assistance, and they're not understanding that there's some very specific criteria they need to meet in order to be assisted with this funding. So that's.
Okay, Manny.
And that's what's out in the public. I liked on one of the slides you put that some just believe because there's rental assistance that they don't even have to apply for anything.
Right.
And it's been very challenging for landlords to entice or educate their tenants, because they're like, I don't have to pay you rent.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, you do, and now with, unfortunately, I don't know how that's going to play with the eviction moratorium we lifted, because a lot of these landlords are due rent in, for many, many months. So I don't know if they can now, try to educate the people now that the things are moving. And I think that's what was happening with the duplication. A lot of people were like, oh, if I apply again, maybe that pushes my application further down the line. So that's what's out in the public right now. So I'm glad that things are being done, that we can expedite the payments, because I receive probably a couple, 3 calls a week, like, when am I getting my check? I applied way back when, so.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, any questions from the public? Anything acknowledged, any written? Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back to the board for further comment or a motion.
I'll be happy to make a motion. You want all 4 at once?
Yeah, all four staff recommendations.
All 4 staff recommendations.
Very
Motion
good.
to approve them.
Second.
And a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you, Tina and Linda. Thank you very much. Okay. Hopefully, I appreciate you guys coming back with that update, and hopefully the next time it'll be better even. Very good. Thank you. Okay. We will move on now to approval of the migration plan for the Financial Management System Enterprise Resource Project, an agreement with Application Software Technology LLC. Kashmir. This is the fun accounting stuff now.
Good morning. I was a little apprehensive this morning, but then when I heard Supervisor Chia's slip up, I felt a little more relaxed, so I'm okay now.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, so hopefully we don't have the same word in your presentation.
Yeah,
Jenny.
no. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kashmir Gill. I'm the Auditor Controller, and joining me at the table is Carol Locke. Carol is one of the committee steering committee members, and behind me we have Paul Gibson. He's the Information Technology Central Department Head, and Patrice Dietrich, Assistant Chief Executive Officer, and also Patricia Ortega-Ruiz, who's the Software and Services Manager. This morning, we just want to take a few minutes to explain the process to pursue a new financial management system. I want to start off with first defining ERP. It stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. The term ERP refers to the software used to manage county's day-to-day business activities such as accounting, procurement, and budget. Okay. This process started back in 2017. A committee comprised of the Auditor Controller's Office, Purchasing, Information Technology Central, and CEO's Office met to explore and examine the county's financial management system. The county had been using Oracle e-Business Suite platform since 1999. A formal governance structure was formed with the goal to improve business practices through enterprise-wide financial management system. To help break all this down, we tried to make the presentation, break the presentation into phases. Phase 1, the county examined current processes and systems. Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, consultants were hired to map the current business processes and evaluate the functionality of the current system. In Phase 2, Phase 2 involved the selection of the software to replace the current application. In Phase 3, services for integration are being sought and completed. And currently, we're moving into Phase 4, implementation of the new software. GFOA, or Government Financing Officers Association Consultants, conducted a thorough review of the business processes and evaluated the functionality of the current system. Their findings were issued in August 2019, and it concluded that while the current system provides functionality, it lacked the advantages of new technology. The report noted that newer technology and systems offer better security, smoother interfaces, and better functionality. The cloud platform, as the software allows, the cloud platform of the software allows access to applications and data from anywhere in the world as long as internet is available. Presently, the current system is not self-contained in that county uses outside applications to complement or augment. The reliance on multiple third-party systems or spreadsheets will considerably be reduced, resulting in cost savings and increased efficiencies. The software industry is also shifting their attention away from the outdated systems. This means that support for the current systems is decreasing and can be costly. Finally, the vendor-hosted platform means that vendor is responsible for updating the system. This will ensure that the county is operating in the most recent version of the software. In the current system, internal staff is responsible for system updates. System updates can be delayed due to competing priorities, which results in inconsistent versions. In phase 2, selection of the software, once we made a decision to upgrade the financial system, an enterprise-wide software application needed to be selected. On May 11th of this year, the board approved a 5-year contract with a 3 optional 1-year renewal term with Oracle America Corporation. The total 8-year subscription cost is $5.1 million. I just want to remind folks here that I'm having a hard time saying subscription. It's for financial and budgeting modules only. It does not include HR and payroll. Phase 3. So once the application was selected, a system integrator was needed to implement and configure the application into the county's business processes and operations. In December 2020, the board approved the request for proposal. The SI or system integrator will assist the county with system configuration, helping us move the data over to the new system, testing, validation, developing processes, and training, and also helping manage change. To help with the selection of the SI, an evaluation team was formed. Representatives from different departments were selected to review written proposals, participate in interviews, check references, and provide scores. The evaluation team played a key role in the selection of the SI. The evaluation process was lengthy. From the time RFP was closed to the award letter, close to 8 months of evaluation time. I want to take an opportunity here just for a second to acknowledge the team members noted on this slide. Also want to thank the management and department staff for supporting the team while they were participating in the ERP project. Their feedback obtained from the evaluation team was invaluable and led to insightful discussions with the selection of the SI. And just another layer to all this was the subject matter experts who supported the evaluation team by providing technical review and assessment. After 8 months of evaluation, Applications Software Technology, or AST, has been selected to serve as the system integrator for the county. AST's 25 years of experience and its focus on public sector customers was a distinguishing factor. Their library of best practices with other city and county clients was a strong consideration. AST's consultants have previously held government accounting positions. AST received outstanding references from their current and past clients who highlighted their timely delivery and approachability. AST proposes a 12-month implementation for the financial and budgeting module with a contract cost of $3 million. So before we transition into the implementation phase, just a quick recap that during the last 4.5 years, extensive research, discussions, and demos have been conducted to validate a need for a new system, select software product, and a system integrator that best fits the county's needs. So currently we're in the implementation phase, and so along with the contract cost with AST, a county implementation team is required to establish business processes, document, test, validation, and training. As such, there will be one-time cost for internal resources, and that one-time cost is estimated at $2.7 million. That's under county staffing and overhead. It's made up of 23 staff ranging from functional leads, subject matter experts, technical, change management, and administrative personnel. The team is anticipated to work side by side with AST consultants for 12 months, plus additional 3 months for post-production. This team will be led by Patricia Ortega-Ruiz, who is the project manager. Patricia has been with the county for over 23 years. She was BHRS IT manager for 4 years prior to joining ITC, a lot of acronyms there, as a software and services manager. In this $2.7 million, a new manager position is being requested to manage change and also help with training. AST and county implementation team will be using the space on the 4th floor of this building. As such, the rent, equipment, and other overhead costs are part of the $2.7 million. So to bring this all together, there's a $6.9 million of one-time implementation cost for internal resources, and the contract with AST. In addition to that, the Oracle Cloud subscription is an 8-year contract for $5.1, bringing us to a total project cost of $12 million. There will be some savings as a result of third-party systems no longer being needed. The savings is estimated to be $2.1 million. That will bring us to a net total project cost of $9.9 million. I do want to put a perspective on this number. So back in 1998-99, the county paid $12 million to purchase a financial HR and payroll module. Back then, the business model was different. We bought a perpetual license, which gave us right to use it indefinitely. Now the model has changed to software as a service solution where we're paying subscription fees to use the license. So there's a difference there. I'm going to go over just quickly the implementation timeline with, if the board approves this request today, AST will start immediately with the implementation of the financial module. The budgeting module will be held off till April or spring of next year. And the go-live date is scheduled for October, a year from now, with a post-production support for an additional month. So in summary, we're currently using our system that's over 20 years old. Technology has changed. County will obtain immeasurable benefits, such as increased efficiencies, flexible working options, better security, automation, and also we'll be in a position to meet our customer needs better. I know these systems are complex and expensive, but they are designed to meet the ever-changing diverse needs of the county and establish a foundation for the next 10 to 15 years. I want to take a moment here to recognize the entire team who continue to perform their regular duties while taking on the additional responsibilities for this project. Special thanks to Patricia, whose careful review of the contract resulted in a strong document with AST. Kathy Blair, who provided the procurement expertise every step of the way, and a very special thanks to Carol, sitting here on my side, whose personal commitment, organizational skills, and dedication kept the team on track with schedules and deadlines. I don't know how many times I told her that she was annoying me with pesky little reminders of, I had to do that, I had to do that. So, and thanks to my partners, Paul Gibson and Patrice, we collectively share a goal to increase functionality, promote efficiencies, and better address our customer needs through a modern financial management system. With that, we have 6 recommendations before you to consider and approve. So I'm going to put my glasses on, this print is small. To accept an update on the ERP project and the implementation of Oracle Cloud software, to approve the migration plan for financial budget systems. I don't know if I could read the whole thing or not here. 3, authorize GSA to sign the agreement or any subsequent amendments to the scope of work without increase to the initial contract award amount. 4, authorize GSA director to negotiate and execute a lease with City of Modesto for the vacant office space on the 4th floor of the 10th place building. 5, amend the salary and position allocation to reflect the additional one-time limited manager for position. And 6, authorize auditor controller to make the necessary adjustments to increase appropriations as necessary. I forgot to mention one thing. The cost of the 9.9 that I alluded to, I believe general fund assignment is available to cover part of it, and the balance will be charged out to departments for claiming and reimbursement. Thank you.
Okay, Cashmere, thank you very much, and Paul and Patrice and Patricia and Carol, thank you guys very much for the presentation. We had a whole team here. Any questions for staff? Buck, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple. Kashmir and team, thank you very much for the report. I guess going to a cloud base, one of the questions you always get is about security. How do we protect that? What does the company do to make sure that all our information is protected?
I'm going to let Paul speak about that.
Thanks, Kashmir.
You're welcome.
Certainly, cloud systems are something that we spend a lot of time investigating, trying to determine and vet the security features of those systems. When we talked to Oracle, one of the really compelling arguments that they made about their cloud hosting solution was how they did database segregation, for instance. That was one of the really strong points that when they talked about how in many organizations, ours included, we tend to have only a few database servers and all of our applications run on those databases, right? What Oracle does in particular in their cloud solution is they segregate instances of databases for each of their customers such that even should there be a breach in any given database in their data center, one cannot use that to escalate to be able to access data in the other ones, which is a technology that Oracle has that frankly we don't have the ability to implement. Oracle is a huge supplier of database software in the world. We use Oracle databases for other systems, not just for the Oracle systems, in part because their security is truly top-notch. And of course, what they implement in their own data centers is even a step above what they offer to us as a customer to them for our on-prem solutions. And so there's no perfect security, right? There's no system that cannot be penetrated. But we feel pretty strongly that Oracle's arguments in terms of the security features that they implement for this particular system is very robust and as good or better than we could provide ourselves internally.
Thank you. And Kashmir, I think you answered one of the questions I had. This is going to take us 10 to 12 years into the future.
Are you holding me to that? Because industry standards are that when you have a system like this, it's good to 10 to 15 years is what I'm getting based on the research that we've had. So last system we've had for over 20 years now.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Buck. Any other questions, comments? Well, thank you guys for doing this. I know what a workout this must have been over the last few years, really, that you've been working on this. And it's amazing when you talk about it. I just know from my own office, when you talk about it, 23 years or so ago, it was $12 million for the software, and it's amazing how far we've come now, and these things have gotten cheaper, and they're so much more advanced and so much more efficient, and so that's a good thing that it's worked out that way. So at some point in there, you talked about the elimination of spreadsheets. That's always a good thing. There's so many spreadsheets out there all over the place that everybody's working on with these formulas built into them that you hope are still right, and all the different, So anyway, that's a good thing, and it helps make more efficient and eliminates errors and mistakes from happening. So that part's good. So, and it sounds like AST is a great one to pick. They've got a lot of experience here in helping implement all this stuff with other government. As we know, government accounting is such a weird animal. So that sounds good of it. That sounds like a good thing. And then lastly, so I look at this as this is financial and budgeting, and you said it doesn't include payroll at this point. So then the next phase, the next probably thing that you have a lot of spreadsheets on is the payroll stuff that you do every 2 weeks here. And it would be great, not that you need, here you are just finishing this, and I'm saying, okay, now here's what we're going to do. But it would be great then if we could advance on now to the payroll, which I know is such a burden on everybody and so employee intensive and so dependent on everybody as far as anytime we lose somebody, we lose that knowledge and stuff. So I hope that then next, take a little break here, but then maybe next we can move on to payroll and decide if that's something that we want to continue to, a function we want to continue to handle, or maybe outsource that if that's an option. But I know you're working on that kind of, so.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, we just thought maybe it was too much to bite off.
No, that's totally understandable. So very good. So great work. I very much appreciate all of your efforts because I know how much time this took to get to this point, and I really feel like you guys got us to a good spot here, and you feel confident. And if you're confident, we're confident here. So very good. Okay. Any public comments with regard to this? Seeing none. Anything written in on this? Darn it, nobody ever writes in about the accounting stuff. Okay, All right, hearing none, we will look for a motion from the board.
Make a motion to approve staff recommendations.
We have a motion and a second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, passed unanimously. Thank you guys very much, good work. A long time coming there. Okay, we will move on now to item 8.3, approval of the 2022 employee health insurance rates. Chief Executive Office, Tamara and Carrie.
I'm going to go ahead and make
Jody.
just a couple of opening remarks while our team puts the PowerPoint up there. And first, I just want to congratulate that whole team that just stepped down from that presentation. That was a ton of work to get here today, and thank you for your kind remarks. Throughout this year, we have tried to do some presentations on items that may normally just be a consent item, and this is one of those things here that on an annual basis we'll bring to you modifications to the county's health insurance rates and program. However, in this instance, we recognize we have 3 members of the board that were not here at the time that we built and implemented and shaped this program through the years. So I asked our team to put together a report showing some of the history, and the timing was actually perfect this year because we have some great financial outcomes that we can share alongside the historical perspective on the health insurance program. So we appreciate you taking the time to do a little look back in history today related to our health insurance program, but to also focus on what the real financial impacts are as of today related to the work that was done many years ago. So go ahead, take it over, team.
All right, good morning. I'm first time I presented with the mask on, so if you cannot hear me or if the microphone is not quite right, please let me know. Good morning, Vice Chair Withrow, members of the board, CEO Hayes and Council Bowes, Tamara Thomas, Chief Executive Office, Human Relations Director. Joining me this morning at the staff table are Senior Management Consultants Carrie Griffin, the county's Operations and Employee Benefits Manager, and driving the PowerPoint today, Ryan Loop, also Senior Management Consultant and the county's Policy Operations and Organizational Development Manager over Human Relations and Human Resources Matters. I do want to give a big shout out to and express my gratitude for our very talented staff and the dedicated staff who manage our benefit resources every day. And the contact that they have both with our providers and with our employees is key and vital to the success of our health programs. CEO HR is pleased to present to you an update on our employee health insurance program. As Jody mentioned, we haven't been before you with a health plan report since 2015. So as we are finishing up our 10th year in the self-insured program, we thought it would be appropriate to provide an update on the continued success of the county's program. We appreciate the opportunity this morning to share the results of our efforts over the years with you. Today's presentation will give you a snapshot of history about the health plans and will highlight many of the items that are included in your detailed agenda report. Although our presentation is intended to be a brief overview, staff are prepared to discuss any of these issues in greater detail, answer any questions you may have here this morning, and if we don't have those answers, we will certainly go back and research and provide them to you. We appreciate this board's support and recognition of the health plan offered by the county, the impetus of which CEO Hayes had great influence with its design and creation. We appreciate the opportunity to continue to provide a high-performing plan that has allowed us, for the most part, to keep rates low for our employees over the years in comparison with other options. And with that introduction today, I will turn the rest of the presentation over to Carrie Griffin and Ryan Loop for your information.
Thank you, Tamara. Good morning, Vice Chair Withrow, members of the board, CEO Hayes, and Council Bowes. Carrie Griffin, the county's Operations and Employee Benefits Manager. Today, we will be talking primarily about the county's medical insurance program. Our active full-time employees make up about 95% of the participants in the medical program, with the rest of our participants made up of retirees through the StanSara system and COBRA enrollees. In addition, the program covers about 5,000 dependents, totaling approximately 8,500 covered lives enrolled in the medical insurance program. Prior to 2012, the county participated in a large purchasing consortium, Pacific Business Group on Health, to purchase fully insured benefits for our employees. For the 2010 and 2011 plan years, the county utilized health insurance consultants to negotiate fully insured medical benefits directly with health insurance providers. From 2005 to 2011, medical insurance premiums continued to grow, with increases averaging 11% per year. And for the 2012 plan year, Kaiser and Anthem provided quotes for a projected 12% increase. Recognizing the need for alternative approaches that would provide greater stability, in 2011, county staff worked with health plan consultants with two specific strategies for implementation for the 2012 plan year. The first was to develop a new nonprofit health plan alternative focused on access to high-quality care with the goal of greater long-term financial stability. From this initiative, the local service area medical provider network, Stanislaus County Partners in Health, was established. The second strategy was to prepare for a self-insured health model. After 7 years of cost increases averaging 11% per year and a projected increase of 12% for the 2012 plan year, another year of double-digit increases was viewed as unsustainable by the county. Additionally, the purchasing strategy of annually bidding fully insured contracts was driving adverse selection among health plans and contributed to the county's cost challenges. This was the time for a critical evaluation of purchasing practices where healthcare purchasing would be driven by a foundational principle of transparency in cost and quality. Health plan purchasing decisions would be driven by a value-based purchasing strategy where value is defined by both cost and quality metrics. Providing the highest level of quality care with easy access for participants continues to be a primary goal. With this goal in mind, several program enhancements were added to support plan participants throughout the continuum of healthcare needs. A monthly healthcare strategy team consisting of county staff and health plan consultants meets to monitor financial and clinical performance and allows for quick course correction to ensure employees access to quality care with sustainable cost structures. Nationally recognized centers of excellence, such as the University of California, San Francisco, are used to ensure participants are receiving the best treatment for complex conditions such as cancer. The plan continues to look at data to identify the best places for care and treatment. Health Bridges of Northern California is a concierge service available to participants to assist them in navigating the healthcare system by providing chronic care management services for conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol, and assisting members in understanding hospital discharge orders and coordination of follow-up care visits. The plan also engaged Cdcr, an RX consulting firm that works with plan providers to improve patient outcomes related to prescription drugs. Decisions are not influenced by drug costs or formulary preferences, but rather reflect clinical guidelines and best practices for the most effective treatment plan for our participants. The Triennial market evaluations have taken place since 2011, included 2014 and 2017, and have been used to inform requests for proposals to enter into 3-year provider and health plan agreements commencing in 2012, 2015, and 2018. When SCPH was developed by the county for the benefit of the county's health insurance program, it was presumed that other employers may want to access the SCPH network for their employee health insurance programs. As the network had been in place for nearly 6 years, other employers began expressing interest in accessing the SCPH network. To create an identity less Stanislaus County specific, Stanislaus County Partners in Health changed its name to Health Partners of Northern California, effective January 1st, 2018. This change in name had no impact in benefits, the network composition, or anything related to the administration of the county's benefit plan. E.J. Gallo Wineries was the first employer to join the county in participation in HPNC program effective January 1st, 2018. The addition of new employer plan sponsors benefit the county through additional leverage in provider contract negotiations and care management program development, as well as the ability to share in program development costs both historically and in the future. The health insurance program today continues to operate under these same strategies. Medical, dental, and vision insurance programs are all self-insured. Unlike a fully insured plan where the employer pays a certain amount each month for each employee, or a premium, to the health insurance company, under the county's self-insured plan, the county is responsible for paying for all services obtained through the health plan. Managing plan expenses is key to the success of the self-insured program, as any change in plan expenses will have a direct impact on health insurance rates. Our plan design continues to base enrollment in health plan networks on employee residents, automatically enrolling participants who live in the local service area in HPNC and those outside the local service area in United Healthcare. 91% of current plan participants are in the local service area. Plan choices are also limited to a high deductible health plan or an exclusive provider organization plan. 75% of current plan participants are in the high deductible plan with HSA. Our medical plan funding rates are based on an actuarial review of various data elements. Once the independent evaluation by the actuary is complete, Chief Executive Office staff, in partnership with the county health plan consultants, consider the actuarial recommendations inclusive of actual plan performance, plan changes in the upcoming year, and with the goal of minimizing fluctuations in cost impacts to employees and the organization. Then final recommended rates are provided to the Board of Supervisors for approval. We continue to negotiate collectively with county employee labor organizations as a coalition for health insurance benefits. This process was recently completed with 9 employee labor organizations for an extension to the health insurance agreement for the 2022 plan year, and this item will come before you for approval separately. 2 labor organizations are in contract through plan year 2022, and we are still in the negotiation process with SEIU. For the 2022 plan year, staff recommend the following rate changes: 10% reduction to medical plan rates, 15% increase to the core dental plan rates, and 20% increase to the buy-up dental plan rates, and a 5% increase to the vision plan. As a reminder, the county implemented a one-time temporary medical rate holiday in 2020, resulting in a rate reduction of 40% for the 3-month period of April, May, and June, and medical plan rates were decreased 1% in 2021, both having the goal of reducing the retained earnings balance. Staff are recommending a 10% decrease for 2022. The decrease will result in approximately $4.9 million in savings to the county and approximately $795,000 to plan participants. The medical self-insurance program has a cash balance of $29.2 million as of June 30th, 2020, the end of the 2020-2021 fiscal year. A healthy cash balance is necessary to maintain reserves available to pay for claims that have been incurred but not reported, also known as IBNR. The county's actuary establishes the minimum level of IBNR reserve necessary to pay for these outstanding claims. The most recent actuarial report has established an IBNR reserve of $9.7 million for the medical self-insurance program. The prior IBNR was $11.5 million, and the $1.8 million reduction is a result of higher claims in 2020 compared to 2021, as well as claim payment patterns being accelerated in 2021 compared to 2020. The difference between the cash balance and the IBNR reserve represents the fund's retained earnings balance or claims fluctuation margin reserve. As of June 30th, 2021, the retained earnings balance was $19.5 million. This claim fluctuation margin reserve provides funds for years with unfavorable claim experience or to smooth future rate increases. As reflected in this chart, the blue line is the program's cash balance, and the orange dash line is the minimum claims reserve balance, or IBNR. Cash above the orange dash line is the claims fluctuation margin reserve, or retained earnings. The goal of the self-insured program is to achieve a minimum of an 80% confidence level that claims will not exceed premiums plus margin in any given year. While the 80% confidence level for the claims fluctuation margin reserve was not achieved in the early years of the self-funded strategy, this goal has been achieved for the last 7 years of the program. Our projected retained earnings balance is above the amount required to meet the actuarial recommendation for funding claims at an 80% confidence level. After implementing the recommended 2022 rate reduction and considering 2022 budget assumptions for program expenses, it is estimated that the program will have a claim fluctuation reserve of approximately $19 million at the end of 2022 plan year. If the program continues to perform as expected, the county plans to maintain rates for the medical plan over the following 2 years to bring the claims fluctuation margin reserve in line with the 80% confidence level. Taking a conservative approach to reducing the retained earnings balance over a 3-year period will allow employees and county departments to benefit from the savings while mitigating fluctuations in the form of future rate increases. Based on projected retained earnings and considering budget assumptions for program expenses, this trend should continue through 2024. As you will see in the next few slides, the county continues to meet the original goal of the self-insured program for financial stability in reducing costs and maintaining average overall annual rate changes that are significantly below those experienced under the fully insured program. As reflected here, the self-insured program has had a significant impact on rate adjustments. The solid orange line represents the actual cumulative annual medical insurance rate inflation under the fully insured program, with the dashed orange line continuing the trend based on prior year's performance. Had the county maintained the fully insured model, it would have had to make other changes to plan benefits, such as increases to deductibles and copays, increased premium cost share for employees, and other plan design changes to help reduce or minimize health care costs each year. The blue line is the actual cumulative annual medical insurance rate inflation under the self-insured program. Under the self-insured program, the average rate increase from 2012 through 2022 is 3.7%. The fully insured pro forma numbers are based on prior year's increases and are estimates used for illustrative purposes, while the self-insured numbers are actual incurred plan costs. The actual per employee per month, or PEPM, costs have only grown approximately 13.5% over the last 9 years, and our self-insured strategy has bent the curve of the cost of inflation for our medical benefits. This chart reflects the annual estimated cost savings from 2012 through 2020, again based on pro forma fully insured trends and actual self-insured costs. While the accumulative savings of $302 million is a very large number, had the county continued to experience the cost increases associated with the fully insured plan, we would have had to do something different to reduce those costs. For our self-insured dental plan, rates decreased in 2021 to buy down the retained earnings balance. The recommended rate increases for the 2022 plan year of 15% for the core plan and 20% for the buy-up plan bring the dental rates back to the 2020 level. County costs for the buy-up plan are based on the core dental plan, and all costs in excess of the core amount in the buy-up plan are funded entirely by plan participants through rates established to fully fund buy-up claims. These rate adjustments will result in a cost increase to the county of approximately $355,000 annually and an increase for plan participants of approximately $230,000. For our self-insured vision plan, rates were held flat in 2021 to buy down the retained earnings balance. The recommended rate increase for the vision program for the 2022 plan year is 5%. This will result in a cost increase to the county of approximately $36,000 annually and an increase for plan participants of approximately $2,000 annually. There are no required Internal Revenue Service inflation-adjusted limits to the minimum annual deductible for high-deductible health plans mandated for 2022. Per the agreement negotiated with employee labor organizations, the county provides partial funding for the deductibles through health savings account contributions. For plan year 2022, the county will increase its annual contribution by $100 for individual and $200 for family coverage, making the total annual county contribution $1,350 toward individual and $2,300 towards family coverage. The annual cost of the increase to the county's HSA contribution is approximately $410,000. County-provided health savings account contributions will total approximately $4.9 million for the 2022 plan year. The total combined fiscal impact to the county for medical, dental, and vision rate adjustments represents a decrease of approximately 7% in overall health insurance cost. This is estimated to be a decrease of approximately $4.5 million annually. Plan participants will be experiencing a total savings of approximately $560,000. In addition, will be receiving approximately $410,000 in additional HSA contributions. Looking forward, the county will be conducting a full market evaluation and analysis in 2022. The tentative agreement reached with employee labor organizations includes a provision for the creation of a health partnership focus group. The focus group will consist of county human relations staff and employee labor representatives. In partnership, we will work to ensure a comprehensive market study is prepared and shared prior to negotiations for the 2023 health insurance agreement. The purpose of the market study is to evaluate how the healthcare plan and healthcare provider marketplaces have evolved over time, and to identify changes in the availability of healthcare products and services. The elements that are considered in a market evaluation, with health plan patient services, network pricing, and network composition playing the largest role, are listed before you. The results of the market evaluation will be used to evaluate purchasing strategies for continued healthcare services. Strategy will be reviewed and developed to ensure we continue to provide a health plan that delivers high-quality care with comprehensive network coverage at a competitive rates. We anticipate receiving a report from our health plan consultants in early 2022. So we've shared a lot of history and information about our health insurance program today and have one recommendation before you this morning. Approve recommended health insurance rates as provided in Attachment 1 to be charged in the employee medical, dental, and vision self-insurance programs for calendar year 2022. And that concludes the presentation for the county health insurance plan performance and 2022 rate recommendations. Chief Executive Office staff are available for any questions the board may have.
Very good. Thank you, Carrie and Tamara and Ryan. Good job, guys. Any questions for staff? Anybody? So you guys, I know, weren't here when this thing started, and things were heading in the wrong direction fast with regard to health insurance, as all of us, I know in my own office, have had to deal with. I wish I could have my office employees join in this plan too. But then this thing was turned around, and we got to give Jody credit for this. What he did with this, from where it was going to where we are now, is amazing. When you look at that number, $302 million. I think, Jody, his bonus is tied to that savings, I think, actually, so that's great how that worked out. It's not, I'm just kidding. But it should be. It was good work, very well done, and really made a difference here for the employees of the county and for the taxpayers, and so this is just a good story and very well done. It's worked out very well, so I appreciate all the hard work of everybody and Jody in making this thing work. So any public comments on this? None? Any written acknowledgments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
make a motion to approve staff recommendations. And it's impressive, I was going to say that. It's someone that's negotiated health care plans back in my union days. This is an impressive program.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, very good. Thank you guys very much.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Okay, we'll move on to correspondence.
This board has received a letter from the Riverdale Park Track Community Services District regarding chemicals in their water system exceeding the notification levels.
Refer to the Department of Environmental Resources.
This board has received the claims as noted on the agenda.
Acknowledge receipt of claims and refer to Chief Executive Office. Any Board of Supervisor reports? None. Legislative Fiscal Management Reports. Chief Executive Officer Jody Hayes.
Yeah, just real quick. So we have over 300 bills still remaining on Governor Newsom's desk to be signed, held, or vetoed in the next handful of days. So that is an awful lot. We're watching, tracking any movement on these bills by that October 10th deadline. And we'll let you know if we have any local impacts that we're seeing. As of right now, and consulting with our legislative advocacy team, we don't believe we have any bills hanging out there that are going to have a tremendous impact to us based on our existing legislative priorities. But when there's that many of them out there, it's hard to keep track of every one of them with every detail. So we're trying.
Very good. Thanks, Jody. Okay, we're going to adjourn to closed session, but before, Tom.
Yes, we have closed session this morning. The first item is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1. We have two cases in that item. It's BNSF Railway Company versus Alameda County et al. That's in the United States District Court, Northern District of California. And the case number is 419 CV 07230. And Protecting Our Water and Environmental Resources et al. Versus County of Stanislaus et al. That's at Stanislaus County Superior Court, and the case number there is 20-06153. We also have conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D4. There's one matter into that item. And we do not expect a report out on any of those, and it'd be appropriate for public comment.
Okay, do we have any public comment with regard to closed session? Steve, thanks for sitting through the whole meeting, and this meeting is adjourned.